here we are again looking at the BCAIP rubric for practice number 5 with our BCAIP score sheet, observation score sheet over on the right. So again, let's start by going through the opportunity row. So we're beginning our observation, we're watching our video, or we're in a classroom. And to start off, we have no clear evidence that students are asked or expected to reason or use evidence. So as always, we begin at a 0. And we start by looking for evidence of the attempting level of this practice, that the teacher is trying to use this practice. So this might look like students being asked or expected to reason or use evidence orally or in writing. So later to get to the higher levels, we'll want to see like a more unified or complete explanation or argumentation based on your disciplinary norms. But down here, it's a little bit more discrete. It's broken up. We're seeing maybe an instance of students being asked to reason or an instance of students being asked to give evidence. To get to a level 2, we would need to see students having an opportunity to produce a complete or unified analysis, explanation, or argument backed by evidence and or disciplinary principles, orally or in writing, where any language is permitted. So we're starting to get a little bit more complex here. Students have an opportunity to produce a complete, unified, I'm just going to say explanation instead of all of these words, but I'm thinking all these words. That is backed by evidence. So in science, evidence is always part of a complete explanation or argumentation. I'm not sure about the other subjects, but we definitely want to see students being asked to give evidence or disciplinary principles here. And any language is permitted. So I feel like at a level 2, you're looking for, are the students being told that they can't have to only use English? If students can only use English, then you're definitely at a level 1, or whatever the target language is, not necessarily English. But if it's a monolingual classroom, you're not getting to a 2. But the teacher's not necessarily encouraging students to use any multilingual abilities that they might have either. Okay, so there's these several parts. So to get to a level 2, you would want to see students doing something like that analysis, that assessment example that I showed in my last video. It could definitely be simpler than that, but we need to see the unification, right, of all the parts of a full disciplinary argument or analysis with evidence. Okay. And then to get to a level 3, we need to see students having an opportunity to share with others their complete unified analysis, backed by evidence and or disciplinary principles. Okay. So with the operative difference so far being they need an opportunity to share with others. So they're not only producing it, they're sharing it with others. And students are encouraged to use their full linguistic repertoire. For example, any language, multiple modes or modalities, or models and representations. So not only allowed to use multiple sets of language skills, pieces of their language repertoire, but really being encouraged by the teacher. Moving down to supports. At a 0, we're seeing no clear evidence of norms, grouping structures, modeling, or resources to support students in reasoning or using evidence. At a level 1, we see the teacher providing at least one norm, grouping structure, model, or resource intended to support students in reasoning and using evidence. This may involve a practice inhibitor. If so, make a note. So yeah, this is something that we've seen this kind of language now throughout the practices, so I won't go into much depth on this one. I think it's pretty straightforward. Okay, gotta scroll down for this next one. So to get to a level 2, we need to see the teacher providing at least one norm, grouping structure, model, or resource intended to support students in reasoning and using evidence. And we need to see the teacher also encouraging and helping students leverage these supports to develop and use discipline-specific vocabulary, symbols, syntax, or discourse. So again, as we've talked about in the previous videos for other practices, a major difference between a level 1 and a level 2 is the teacher not just providing supports, but really like facilitating students' use of them to really engage students at a deeper level and really maximize the use of these scaffolds to engage with the disciplinary language and discourse more deeply. And when needed, the teacher uses translanguaging moves to leverage students' own language or language varieties. So this is a little bit different than the other practices. We might see translanguaging in a level 2 here, so that's something to point out. And then to get to a 3, the teacher provides at least one norm, grouping structure, model, or resource intended to support students in reasoning and using evidence. So hopefully you notice that this first expectation is the same and pretty much in all the columns, and it's just building as we go along. Same with this next one. The teacher, at a level 3, the teacher also encourages and helps students leverage these supports. And the teacher uses strategic translanguaging moves for the goal of expanding how emerging through experienced bilinguals reason or use evidence. So for example, this might look like the teacher differentiating how students reason or use evidence based on students' oracy or literacy, students getting feedback from teacher or peers on reasoning or using evidence in their home language, or students producing texts in their home language that are shared with the family or the community, or students making linguistic choices. Linguistic choices, for example, when students can use which language, are part of the expectations or rubric. So at a level 3, we're seeing much more explicit encouragement and scaffolding by the teacher to help students expand their multiple literacies, not just their, disciplinary literacy and their English language literacy. Okay, so I didn't type out any evidence, but I think by now you guys have seen me do this for all the other practices, so you know what it should look like. Same thing, you would put in your timestamps, put in all your evidence that you can possibly type down in here, and then once you have your evidence, you take a measure of it, see what the preponderance of it, where it's lying, using the language of the rubric to help figure out which level or which score really captures the evidence or describes the evidence that you've collected and put in your score, and you are done.